Hello, everybody. It's lovely to see you here. I'm Martina Doolan, and some of you may already know me. I see some familiar faces. I'm the president of the IFNTF, and this is our fifth symposium. And we had our first symposium in 2017. So the IFNTF was established in 2016. We had our first symposium in 2017, and we had that in person in Birmingham. And we explored defining teaching excellence across disciplines. And then we had the second one in Srini's home in Halifax in Canada in 2018. And we shared practice around nurturing teaching excellence across disciplines. Then in 2021, we went virtually as a result of COVID-19, and we held our conference in conjunction with the SDLHE in Canada, and the theme was shaping teaching excellence across disciplines. And then and that went really well, actually. Being online went really well. So then in 2022, which was last year, we held a virtual symposium, or we called it a symposiathon, where we joined the idea of a marathon because of over different time zones with this symposium. And that was Reshaping Teaching Excellence, Pandemic, and the New Now. And then we had our first ebook came out of that. And so this year, the theme of the symposium is focused on augmenting teaching excellence. So we're looking at, specifically, we're going to be looking at cutting edge technologies around AI. So in terms of logistics, as per the program schedule, so we're running over 3 time zones. So the one in the UK, and then in Canada, USA, and then Australia and New Zealand. So we started now at 5 o'clock in the UK. In the UK, we run until 1 a.m. And I know that's probably a long stretch for a lot of us. So feel free, dip in and out, or if you have to drop off early and go to bed, whatever, it's perfectly fine. So in relation to the, we like to say thank you to all the speakers, so all those who are going to present. We had a very healthy response to the call, so thank you for that. So presenters and keynotes, we'd like to say thank you so much. And in relation to the logistics, the presentations are for 12 minutes and then 3 minutes for questions. The keynotes are for 20 minutes, but that includes also questions. So it'd be nice to leave some time for questions. You will see on the schedule, there is some time within there for little breaks in between. And there, if you don't want to take the break, it's an opportunity to have further discussion. So that would be lovely. And yes, we welcome questions. So as is the case so far, it's lovely to see the chat in the chat facility in Zoom, and of course throughout the sessions. It'd be great to continue that conversation and questions around the presentations. And then, as we say, there'll be questions after the presentations and also the keynotes. So I would like to thank everybody from the executive committee. Thank you so much for all your time and effort in organizing the symposium. So we have Srini, who's just said hello. So Srini Sampali is our vice president in Canada. And Laura Ritchie here in the UK is our secretary, as I said, here in the UK. We have Steve Rutherford, who is here in Cardiff. Hi, Steve, and he's our treasurer. We also have James in Strigulator, who I don't think would be here as yet because of the time difference.
He is.
Is he? Oh, James, you're right in front of me. I didn't see you. Hi, how are you?
Hi there.
Hi there. So James is our vice president in the USA. And then the ones whereby there won't be there's a big time difference is for Sally Kift, who is our co-president in Australia, and Heather Cavan, who is our co-president in New Zealand. So thank you to all of the executive. Have I thought of everybody, Srini?
I think you have covered it all, Martina. I was just going to add, Steve is our Zoom master.
Oh, yes.
He's going to stay for the entire duration of the symposium, all 9 hours. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. And to say the recordings will be available after. So I'm going to introduce Laura. So Laura is doing our first keynote, and Laura entitled Seeing Student Self-Efficacy, a Key to Retention and Success. And Laura Ritchie is a professor of learning and teaching at the University of Chichester in the UK. And besides being a cellist, Laura is a chartered psychologist and has published and presented internationally in North and South America and across Europe. Laura has developed curricula for undergraduate and postgraduate programs, and her teaching is heavily influenced by her research into people's self-efficacy beliefs and cognitive processes, specifically metacognition and self-regulation, as they learn and perform and carry out tasks. So Laura, it's over to you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Martina. Hopefully everybody can see those, my pretty pictures. And all the pictures, just to say, are, of course, AI generated. And that will give you something to look at because there's always something wrong with every single one. They're quite creative. So the titles on the slides have been used to generate the different images. And I'm really pleased in opening this conference, this IFNTF Symposiathon. I'm not going to talk about the details of actually using AI technology, but what I'm going to bring is a holistic and very human lens to incorporating AI and other emerging technologies in our educational contexts. I think it's really important to begin by considering something about the technology, what it can do for us, what research has shown it can do for our students, and then I'll move on, importantly, to the people who are involved with it, both the students and the teachers. So we have the technology itself, the teachers and the students. And the question is, how can we effectively understand our students from their perspective? Because I think this is really important. And of course, when I put that question and teachers, students, and technology into the AI generator, you get a really messed up keyboard and people who, you know, my son said, why are their legs wrong? Why are their arms wrong? And it's a complex problem is why. We know the technology offers several benefits, and I've put certain words in bold that I've taken from recent studies. So we have studies from 2021, 2023, and there's one more that I haven't actually taken a quote from, but I'll tell you about. And I really like some of these words, that AI can promote equitable and adequate quality advancement in education. That idea of equity is something that we all are encouraged and should focus on. And then that it can maximize students' innovation and creativity in the face of social change. I love that as well, because it is an ever-changing landscape and it's quite a complex setting, the setting of higher education for us as teachers and for the students, especially after the past few years. And then something that is very important is this final point has to do not with the technology itself, but with the capabilities to use it, both by the educational institution and by us, the teachers and the students. And it focuses on the institution, the capacity for it to use it in the infrastructure to build around so that we're not just lumping something on, but also how do we integrate these technologies into our lessons, our lectures, and our curricula? And it raises the question, do we actually know what they are or how to use them? And I know some of the people here absolutely know what they are. And others of us who are trained in things like music and psychology have less expertise with the nuances of what these different algorithms actually do. We're going to find this capability to use artificial intelligence is very important. Now, there was another study I mentioned that I didn't take a direct quote from, and it was earlier this year by Yilmaz and Yilmaz, two different people, same surname, and they found also that using AI in lessons and in curricula had a positive impact on not only students' self-efficacy, but particularly their computational thinking skills, programming self-efficacy, and their motivation. And that was with the successful inclusion of AI for the students to explore and experiment with as they developed their own working projects. So it wasn't something that was taboo, it was absolutely integrated. Now, the study by Wang, Sun, and Chen found in a study of over 500 students, 560 students, ranging from those with backgrounds that included vocational training through undergraduate, postgraduate, and all the way through PhD level, that these students, who also came from a range of backgrounds, they were from the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities, that this capability for using AI influenced directly their creativity, their self-efficacy, and their learning performance. So from the green dot working that way, the AIC had an impact on creativity, self-efficacy, and learning performance. Working the other direction, they said actually they could group the skills needed to develop this capability, this confidence in using AI, into aspects of knowing how to gather resources, what skills to use, and consciousness. And I'll explain those later. I'll break them down into a list of questions for you that you can understand. So that brings me back to this question, can teachers understand students? And the basic answer is, well, of course we could, because we're teachers and we've been at this for a while and we know what we're doing and we're very clever. But on a practical side, possibly not, because we have too much to do. And it's not always a practical possibility to actually understand students because we don't have the time, we don't have the tools, we sometimes don't have the capabilities to arrange to find out about the students and ask them things. And sometimes some of the things about a student's context are just, in a detailed sense, not our business. But knowing in general what matters to students can help us very much to know how they're going to be able to engage with these new and emerging technologies. And if we're going to be adopting them, and yes, I think we are, I don't think it's a possibility even to, you remember the days when people said you're not allowed to bring a laptop? It just doesn't happen, you know. Yes, we're going to integrate these things. We're going to use things to our benefit and find a way to make them tools to help our students grow. But we have challenges. And it brings me to the next question of, well, what do the institutions think about the students when we integrate these technologies? And I found this little three-word phrase that students become qualified human capital. And I nearly withered and you know, melted into the floor when I read that. And I thought, oh my goodness. It was a study from a university in Florida, not naming which one. And, you know, honestly, for me, students are people. They're very important. And to turn them into capital, qualified or unqualified, is really upsetting because the students' thoughts, their perceptions, their self-perceptions, and their experiences all matter very much. Why do they matter? Is this just my opinion? No. Self-efficacy, your belief in your capabilities to do something, is very important. It's been shown to be the greatest predictor of academic success. These two authors, although it was in 2013, they did a study taking an audit of the past 13 years of research on self-efficacy and academic success. And self-efficacy was the greatest predictor, considering lots of different things, including just the raw GPA of students. And that's important. So how can we understand these students? We go back to that question, how can we do it? And it's a bit tricky because the traditional way would be through, you know, asking them lots of interviews, time. Oh, I don't know, perhaps we can use a questionnaire, but most questionnaires actually, they don't really help students and they tell you what you are. And I know as a fairly small woman who plays the cello, I've had a lifetime of people saying, oh, darling, don't you wish you played the flute? And I think I'm so much more than that. So I really dislike the idea of telling people what they are. So I spent the past couple of years making a tool that could be helpful. And yes, it's a non-AI emerging technology. It's like an app. It's a web-enabled tool. that does the gathering of interview-like information to create portraits of individuals, considering their strengths, their weaknesses, their self-efficacy, and their personal priorities in the context of where they are. So I put a link to the website that I made, and I did this with 3 other people. It wasn't entirely on my own, but I did the inside guts of it, and I've been working, it's my kind of baby. What does it do? And what's it based on? Well, 20 years of research in psychology and the things that Martina mentioned, and not just mine, because obviously on a team, I've been working with quite senior people as scientific advisor, things like that. So the past 20 years of research having to do with person-centered understanding people in context. And then I did a study last year that formally validated this methodology. And what it does is it overcomes the obstacles of taking time and costing money of traditional surveys. And by being focused on an individual, it allows a picture of that individual in their context on that day. And it has sensitivity to an individual's culture, their own voice, and where they are. And many stock surveys, actually most of them, don't do that because they're fixed. So this is a framework and not something that's fixed. So what happens is a student takes a survey online, and it's got these sections that you can see up there. It has to do with what's your strength, what's your confidence, what things are important to you, and your weakness as well. Where are your challenges? And a bit of final thoughts where people can write free text answers. So they do this. How is it actually unique? I thought I'd give you an example based on the research I mentioned at the beginning of this, saying that this AIC, the capabilities for using AI, were boiled down to resources, skills, and consciousness. And the questions that came out of the topics that came out of their research had to do with these following things that could be turned into questions, which should I or you want to make this C degree survey for this topic, these are the kind of things that you'd be asked. How confident are you that you can, in sourcing reliable data sources, in knowing how to use people as resources, having good technical skills and understanding how technology works, good collaboration skills and understanding how to work with others to use new technology, and having awareness of technological innovation and development, and having a good awareness of your own learning growth. So all these questions would be asked about, do they relate to your strength as human? When I did it, I thought that my strength on that day when I did it was tenacity. And some of those don't really relate to tenacity, and that's all right. And other times you find surprising links. And then how confident are you? And is it actually important to you? Because sometimes when students are good at things, if they don't care about it, they're not really going to engage with it. And as we use new technologies, it's important for us as teachers to have an overview of where our students sit on this spectrum. Are they turned on by what we're doing? Are they fired up to go and use these new tools? Or actually, are we talking to deadwood who don't really want to know because they just want the grade? If that's the case, hopefully not, we might take a different approach. So with this survey, a student takes a questionnaire and they get a feedback report that shows these relationships. So the ones that you see here had to do with academic success, not the AIC version. I thought I'd show you a few different things. And this one included mental health and finances, academics, physical health, family, commuting, concentration, and a sense of belonging. And where there are lines, that's where this person's strength, which said honesty with both self and others, related to what they were doing. And the circles have to do with either their confidence or how important this is to them. So they get to see themselves in a different light. And the academics also get to see the student, but not with personally identifiable information unless the student tells you you can. So then they get a detailed section, which highlights specific areas that the student can improve in. Because if I'm using new technologies, I may not realize what I have to do to be successful with it. And actually, if I realize that it's quite important for me to have technical skills, but I'm not confident in that area, then maybe I need to get some help. And if this has been flagged up, I can go and ask for help. So it can guide improvement. There's also a facility for the teacher, or whoever makes the questionnaire, to include custom links to resources where the student can gain help for the different areas. So it may be that it links to people, it may be that it links to videos, documents, course materials that you think, actually, I want my student to know about these. And I've created a little algorithm that gives different students different resources based on how important these areas are to them and their levels of confidence. So it gives an overall picture of what's going on. So I thought it was only fair if I let you try. So should you like to give it a go, I have to duck under this. There's a link or a QR code. And if you were to take a snap of that QR code, this one's very short. It has 7 questions and it is based on 3 academic areas, concentration, academics, and finances. And I'll put the link in the chat. That's a good idea. But I'll have to do it after because I can't access it right now. But it'll take you about 5-10 minutes if you click through, and you don't have to think very hard. You can just see what it's like, and you could always do it again. If you do it, there will be 3 steps. One is it'll ask you to log in. I don't hold the login. The login is through the Auth0 site, and it's simply for you to be able to log in again. Because should you, I devised this with students in mind. So should you want to have a different sort of questionnaire for different things, like I might want one for one of my classes, and another thing might be the overall academics, and I might want my student to be able to see their progress longitudinally. So if they did it again in 3 months, I want to say, like, actually, we've worked on this stuff. How has your confidence changed and your skills, and what do you see as your strength now? Have strengths, shifted? Has your weakness become a strength? So the login is for you. Nobody else sees it. Then the survey, it's got these 7 parts. Then you get your results. It just pops up. Now, overall, I think it's a goal of mine that the idea is that we can see our students as individuals. And if you are able to, I don't know, find some value in this and you think you want to try it, fine, you can. For free, I don't mind, because the idea is it's supposed to help the students, and the students come first. And if I'm able to create a non-AI, even simplistic, emerging technology that retains the students as individuals and aids the teachers, us, to do our jobs better by gaining insight into what the priorities are for the student, and perhaps seeing ways that we can engage our students that we might not have seen before, then that's a win for me, and hopefully it's also a win for the students. I'll end there in case there are any questions. So thank you.